Hello travelers, Boardman21 here, and today got a 1 to 75 leveling guide for you for the mage, and this one is going to be the mage going into the sorcerer. It's based around using lightning. You're going to be basically building into a Nova Boy build, and what we're going to be doing is running a lightning blast with lightning chaining to a single target for your single target damage. We're going to have elemental nova, which will be all lightning, and it will also do spark charges, which will be an extra bunch of lightning damage. And then on top of that, as soon as you get to a high enough level, I think it's 42 to wear the Ashen Crown, you'll be able to target elemental nova. So we did farm some uniques ahead of time for this one. And then at the same time, we're also going to have it to where when you teleport, you will proc 3 elemental novas, which makes it really easy to speedrun through the campaign. It makes it really easy to speedrun through a lot of the echoes, because you can literally just teleport and a lot of things will die, especially if you round them up and then just hit them all with 1 or 2 teleports. They're basically gone right after that. So this will be set up the same as all of my other leveling guides, where we stop and we go ahead and put points into our skills and passives. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alright travelers, we are now level 4, which means we get to spec into our first skill. But first, the character sheet. We haven't put on anything special for resistance yet. We've got just over that 130 health. We've got a little bit of dodge and armor. It does go up when we take a hit. For skills, we have our first skill, which we're going to go ahead and spec into Elemental Nova. And the first thing that we want to do with Elemental Nova is we want to get it to a point where you can channel it. Then we're going to go into the base crit, and then we're going to go spark charges with it, and we're going to do the same thing with Lightning Blast, but we'll spec into that at level 8. So the first point is going into Lightning Nova. We want it to be all lightning, and then we want to get into the Luminaire so that we can channel it. That's going to be our channeler, while our single target real hard hitter will be Lightning Blast for a little bit cheaper of a mana cost. For passives, we've got 2 passive points, and you can do a few different things. I'm going to go ahead and put into intelligence just because I like to get my resistance capped pretty early, but you can definitely go for damage, or you can go for health and mana, which will also raise your EHP as well, and the mana is always nice to have. And then in the inventory, we have on the uniques that we typically run with all of them. We got on the Arborial Circuits. We're going to have on the Close Call. Eventually, we'll put on the Viper Tail and then Prison Wraps. You can have Avarice on, Tone of Elements, and then eventually down the road, there's going to be a few others that you can wear as well, but we'll get into it. And that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 8. Alright travelers, we are now level 8. We've got about 190 health. We're still working on some of our resistances. We got a little bit of lightning, fire, but at this point you want void and physical. And then we got about 12% armor, 5% dodge. We won't be building into those much. For skills, we got 2 more points for Elemental Nova. We're going to go ahead and throw both of them into Elemental Expanse. So 2 points there for a larger area. so that we can get to the Luminaire as quick as possible so we can channel it. And then for the second skill that we're going to go ahead and spec into, it's going to be Lightning Blast. And with Lightning Blast, we want to be able to chain. We want to be able to chain to the same target. We want convergence. So the first point that we're going to go ahead and throw in here is going to be right down to the bottom, and it is Storm Razor. And that will give us some base crit chance with it. It's going to increase the damage, but it will help unlock as we go towards convergence. And then for passives, we have 5 more points. We're going to put all of them into Arcanist, and then for our inventory, all the same uniques that we were wearing. We have on the Arbitral Circuits, we got a 2-handed staff for the damage for adaptive, and then Lessons at the Metropolis Boots, which give us a bunch of dodge rating increase, and if we have recently taken a hit, a bunch of flat, which is really nice. You also take less damage while moving. But that'll be it for this update, and I'll see you guys at level 13 for the next one. Alright, travelers, we are now level 12. You've got just over 200 health. We've got a little bit of our elemental resist, still working on finding some physical and void. We have a lot of uniques on, so it's kind of hard to find them. But for skills, we've got 2 more points for Elemental Nova. We went ahead and put 1 more in Elemental Expanse and then 1 point in Luminaire. And then for Lightning Blast, we have 3 more points. We're going to go with 1 more in Storm Razor and then 2 points in Chain Lightning so that it can chain 2 additional targets. And then the next point we have will go in Convergence so that it will target only the 1 target, and this is where we'll get a bunch of our single target from. Then for passives, we've got 4 more points. We're going to cap out that Arcanist, and then we're going to start building into Scholar, so we're going to go ahead and put 3 points there. And then for the inventory, everything's pretty much the same. We end up throwing the Avarice on, and then we have a 2-handed thing, or a 2-handed wand with the spell and the lightning damage, and we have a little bit more lightning damage on our amulet as well. And that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 20 when we spec into our 3rd skill. Alright, travelers, we are now level 20, which means we get to spec into our 3rd skill. But first, the character sheet. We've got about 40% of our elemental resist, a little bit of physical, and we really do need to start working on our necrotic and our void, but we haven't found any good gear with it yet. For damage, we've got about 50% spell damage, we've got about 150% lightning damage, which is allowing us to hit pretty hard with Lightning Blast and Elemental Nova Lightning at this point. And then for our skills, we've got 3 more points for Elemental Nova. We're going to go ahead and start building into that base crit chance just so you can have it. You can also build into the spark charges if you want. There's a tough line between both the spark novas, or the spark charges will hit pretty hard. So I'm going to go ahead and actually put 3 points in the spark charges, as I like those, and those will almost double the damage that you do because they hit really hard. They would do double damage if you still had the effect from Lightning Blast that affected, but because it doesn't, they hit for like an alright amount of damage. But it is a way to kill enemies even quicker. But we'll be building into this and into the charge destruction at the same time. That's what we'll be going back and forth between. Then we got 3 points for Lightning Blast. We're going to finally get into Convergence, and then 2 more points in Chain Lightning. And next we'll get up into the double cast and into the arcing power so that we can try and get as many of them as possible before we go into the spark charges and the spark charge effect for it. And then for our 3rd skill, we're going to go ahead and spec into Teleport. And with Teleport, the first thing we really want to do is get into where we're getting the 3 Elemental Novas every time we teleport. It's going to do a lot of damage, and you can clear trash mobs just by teleporting along. So the first point is going into Resonant Plasma, and then the last 3 points into Elemental Affinity, and on the next update we'll be able to build into that and then be able to do tons of damage just by teleporting through the maps. For passives, we have 11 more passive points. We're going to cap out the Scholar, and then we're only going to put 4 points into Knowledge of Destruction for that crit chance and critical strike multiplier, but I only want 20 here because I want to start building into the Sorcerer as soon as we master it in the next update. And then for the inventory, all the same uniques that we've had on. We are wearing a oak staff at this point for as much adaptive spell damage as we can get. Here pretty soon we're going to update to a new one. We should be able to get to about 20-25 adaptive spell damage. I think at level 20 it unlocks, or here pretty soon in the next few levels. And that'll be it for this update. I will see you guys for the next one at level 25 when we choose our mastery. Alright, Travelers, we are now level 25, and it is time to choose our mastery. We are in the end of time. For the character sheet, we have just over 400 health. We're still working on our resistance. We haven't put on any new gear between level 20 and 25, but at this point we are going to start looking for some new stuff. And then for our damage, we still have the 150% lightning, 50% spell damage, and we are going to be putting on a new two-handed staff here pretty quick to get some more adaptive spell damage, which will really boost our damage. But for skills, we got one more point for Elemental Nova. We're going to continue to build into the spark charges for now until we cap that out. Then we'll go back to getting the critical strike chance, and then eventually we'll increase the area a little bit more. We got 2 more points for Lightning Blast. We're going to go ahead and put both of them in arcing power, so when we are going up against single target, we get additional change the more that we manually cast it. So this is going to allow us to get more single hits going in and more hits per second, which will really boost the damage. And then for teleport, we got 3 more points, 1 point in Elemental Affinity and 1 point in Elemental Dawn with 1 point in Elemental Dusk. And this way we start getting we're going to get Elemental Novas every time we teleport, and once we get 1 more point in Elemental Midnight, we'll get 3 of them total, and 3 hits, and the fact that they apply spark charges on those hits should give you enough damage to kill off most trash mobs as we continue through. And just to show you what that looks like, when I teleport, you're going to see that we have Lightning Blast going off, and it does not cost the mana cost of the lightning or of the Elemental Nova, so it makes it to where you can just keep teleporting over and over again and get in 3 elemental hits. We're going to go ahead and choose our mastery, which will be the Sorcerer. This gives us a lot more mana, and spells still equal increased damage to their mana cost, so we're going to get a little extra damage with them as well. We'll unlock the Meteor, but we won't be using it. And then for passives, we got 7 points all going into the Sorcerer, and we're going to go ahead and go with increased spell critical strike chance right off the bat. We want to get as close as possible, or even to 100% spell crit by the time we get to endgame, so we do tons of damage. We're getting tons of leech, especially with the prison wraps that leeches a percentage of critical strike damage, which will be really nice. And then for our inventory, everything is the same. At level 42, we will be putting on the Ashen Crown so that we can target Elemental Nova. We will be switching out of the 𝐓𝐢𝐬𝐦𝐞 gloves and the Lessons of Boots once we find better ones. We're going to take off a ring here pretty soon. We're going to upgrade our two-handed staff, and then eventually we'll take off the Viper Tail as well. But right now, the little bit of poison damage that it does is enough to finish off mobs instead of wasting mana on another hit. And that will be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 35 when we spec into our 4th skill. Alright, Travelers, we are now level 35, which means we get to spec into our 4th skill. For our character sheet, we still haven't done any gearing, which we really need to spend some time doing, but we haven't had any survivability issues. Flame Ward has been keeping us on top of it. And for our damage, we do have 160% lightning damage. We did up the staff, but we'll go over that here in a minute, and 25% spell damage. For skills, we got 3 more points for Elemental Nova. We're going to cap out that spark charges so that we have that 100% chance to apply it. We're going to go ahead and put 2 points in Charge Destruction to give us a higher base critical strike chance with it, so that we will do more damage overall, since we'll critically strike more often. For Lightning Blast, we got 3 more points. We're going to cap out the arcing power so that we get more maximum additional change. The faster that we cast it, the more we do. And then we're also going to put 1 point in overcharge so that we have a chance to double cast, and this also increases our critical strike multiplier with it. On top of that, we'll eventually get into some Lightning Aegis, which will give us increased lightning damage, but also give us some extra survivability. For teleport, we have 4 points. We already put 1 into Elemental Midnight just so we could get that 3rd Elemental Nova going off, which is really nice. Now we're going to start building in towards a decoy, so 3 more points in Resonant Plasma. This will give us some fire and lightning and stun avoidance whenever we teleport, and since we're doing that all of the time, it's a good way to get your elemental between that and Crystalline Passage. But we're going to get some decoys so that not everything is targeting us. Right now, the Arbitral Circuits are doing a good job of spawning that tree, or what looks like the training dummy, to keep us going. And then for our 4th skill, you have a few different choices here. You can do Flame Ward if you want more ward and more survivability, but for us, we're going to want to go into Ice Barrage. So first we're going to do passives, and for passives, we're going to cap out that Calculated Destruction. And then we're going to go ahead and go with Brainstorm for more mana regen, so 8 points there. And then the last 5 points, we're going to go ahead and go with Arcane Momentum because it gives us increased cast speed. So what's nice about this is it's going to allow us to cast a lot more Lightning Blasts, and therefore it will chain a whole lot more. It just really helps with the single target damage that we're going to do, so 5 points there. And then back to passives or skills. For that skill, we're going to go with Ice Barrage. And the reason we're going for Ice Barrage is it's just an also really nice single target killer. Also, when we're just running through and teleporting and letting things die, having Ice Barrage go off in front of you and destroy things as well, it just really speeds up how fast we're going to go through the game. So right off the bat, we're going to go ahead and go with 4 points in Biting Cold for increased damage and crit chance with it. And then we're going to go ahead and go with Eternal Winter to increase the duration of it. And then for our inventory, we did upgrade to a Maruna Staff. It comes with up to 32 adaptive spell damage. We put spell lightning and lightning damage on it, and that has worked out quite well for us, and we're going to leave that on there for a while. Again, we're still going to replace the Avarice and the boots, and here pretty soon at level 42, we'll be able to put on the Ashen Ground and actually target Elemental Nova where we channel it. And then we'll be taking off 1 ring. We'll lose a little bit of move speed, but it will allow us to get some more resist. And again, at this point, we really want to get that physical capped out. We are going to get the elemental from teleporting, but we want to get some necrotic and void as well. It would be really nice as we get closer towards the end game, and maybe even some critical strike avoidance. But that's it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 43 when we update next. Alright, travelers, we are now level 43. Time for another update. We've got a bit of our elemental resist. Again, that's going to go up when we teleport. We're going to build more into that on this one so that we can get all of the elemental protection. We got a little bit of void, necrotic, and a little bit more physical than we had before, but we will have to continue crafting. We really want to get that physical to a capped state. And as we're wearing the Ashen Crown now, a lot of the physical damage we take is as fire, so we want to cap out our fire resist and make sure we're teleporting to keep that fire resist as high as possible, because we take reduced elemental, and having all of the physical converted to fire will be one way that we're surviving. We have just over 660 health as well. For skills, we got 2 more points for Elemental Nova. We're going to go ahead and cap out the Charge Destruction and then finish out getting this area with it so it hits as big an area as possible. For Lightning Blast, we got 2 more points. We're going to go ahead and put 2 more in Overcharge so that we have that double cast chance, which really helps us take down the single targets really quick. For Teleport, 3 more points. We're going to go ahead and get 1 Decoy and then put 2 points in Crystalline Passage so that we can get some cold resist, and we can also increase the duration that we keep all of those buffs, because right now we get that 20% increased fire and lightning resist and now 10% cold. And then for Ice Barrage, we're going to get into Ice Shield so it has a longer cooldown. It is very mana expensive. If you want to use Focus instead, it will work probably even better for you at this early stage. We're going to put 2 points in Hailstorm, 4 points in Cryogenesis, and then 1 point in Ice Shield, and then we're going to go with 1 more point in Eternal Winter for that duration. For passives, we got 11 more points. We're going to go ahead and put 1 point in Seronomancer and then 5 points in Rift Bolt so that we get that leech. We want as much leech as possible. And then 5 points in Crackling Precision so we have a higher chance to critically strike, and this is doubled for lightning skills, which is what we're using. So it's really going to give us a lot of extra damage with that. And then for our inventory, we are now wearing the Ashen Crown. You can wear this at 42. It gives you plus stall attributes. You take a percentage of physical damage as fire. But the big thing is it lets you target where Elemental Nova is cast even while channeling it, which makes it really nice for your survivability because you can kill things ahead of you instead of having to be on top of them where they can hit you. And that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 50 when we spec into our 5th and last skill. Alright, travelers, we are now level 51, time for the level 50 update, and that means that we get to spec into our 5th skill. We're also going to do some skill swapping a little bit. We've got almost 800 health, still working on our resistance. When we do teleport, we do end up with capped lightning, almost capped fire, and then we do need a little bit more cold. We still need to work on our physical and the other 3 elements as well, but they are slowly getting their way up as we get better and better gear. For skills, we got 1 more point for Elemental Nova. We're going to go ahead and cap out the Elemental Expanse. For Lightning Blast, we have 1 more point. We're going to cap out that Overcharge for that chance to double cast. For Teleport, 1 more point. Going to keep building into Crystalline Passage for that cold resist for now. And then for Ice Barrage, we're actually going to respec this, and we're going to end up putting in Focus so that we can actually get mana back a little bit faster when we do decide to use it. We're trying to offset it with a lot of mana regen and trying to use Teleport more often. But if you do need it, we're going to go ahead and put some points into it. So 4 points in Mana Flooded, 1 point in Desperate Meditation, and then 2 points in Revelation. So that burst will give us a little bit more mana. Then for our 5th skill, we're going to go ahead and spec into Flame Ward. We're going to go ahead and put 3 points in Dilation to make it last as long as possible. Then we're going to put 1 point into Star Ward Defense for some extra ward out of it, 2 points in Barrier for less hit damage while it's active, and 1 point in Prismatic Buffer. This less elemental damage taken is huge for us. We're going to max that out first because We want to take less elemental damage, as a lot of the damage we take will be elemental, especially if we ever find 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐸𝐲, but for now the Ashen Crown converts a lot of physical damage into fire, and between this and the Prison Reps chest, we can take a lot less elemental damage, so your survivability will go up a ton with that. For passives, 8 more points. We're going to cap out Crackling Precision for that critical strike chance, and then put 5 points in Spellslinger for that adaptive spell damage and all of that extra mana regen, so we'll do a little more damage, and with that increased mana regen, we can spam things a little bit more often. And then for the inventory, we have the Prison Reps, we have the Ashen Crown, we are starting to get rid of all the other uniques that we were wearing. We still have on one Arboreal Circuit, but as soon as we find a much better, such as like a elemental ring, or a gold ring, we're going to go ahead and like switch over to that so we can get our resistances all capped out. If it's got a bunch of health or mana regen on it, lightning damage, those type of things, we'll end up taking those off. But right now it's nice just to have that illusionary tree that gets summoned when you take that hit, because it takes everything away from you. And that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 55. Alright, travelers, we are now level 55. It's time to put in some more points in our passives and skills. First, the character sheet. We have just over 800 health. Right now, we do want to start getting a lot more health. About 1,200 health going into the monos would be a really nice to have, but we need to continue to work on that. It's going to be hard since we are wearing a unique chest and helm. For our resistance, we still have quite a bit of elemental, and again, when we teleport, we're going to cap out that fire and lightning. Cold is still up there. We need to get our physical up. Necrotic's almost capped now, still need a little bit more void, and then poison will be the last one that we worry about. And we have a little bit of armor. For damage, we do have 170% lightning damage, as well as about 50% spell damage. It's about tier 3, tier 4 on our weapon. And we are wearing a woodland staff at the moment. Eventually down the road, we'll get all the way to where we are using a sorcery staff to do the most damage that we can possibly do. For skills, we got one more point for Elemental Nova. We're going to go ahead and start building into the overcharge. And this is going to give us a chance to just do more of a elemental nova in a larger area. It's also going to have a lot of shock chance, so it's going to apply 2 stacks of shock to the enemies, which is going to allow us to do more damage to them, which is really nice. For Lightning Blast, we have 1 more point. We're going to go ahead and throw it into Lightning Attunement. The reason for this, we want to start being able to get Lightning Aegis because we do have 1 idol, and we'll be working towards getting 4 idols that give us increased lightning damage when we have that Lightning Aegis. Plus, having Lightning Aegis itself already grants you 50% increased lightning damage, and you take 25% less damage, or up to 25% of your health, which is huge, which is another reason why we're stacking as much life as possible. For Teleport, we got 1 more point. We're going to go ahead and then throw it into Crystalline Passage as well. For Focus, 8 more points. We're going to throw 2 of them in Revelation, 1 point in Energy Infusion, 1 point in Resolute Stance, and then the last 4 points there in Prismatic Stance, so that when we are focusing, we again take even more less elemental damage. And then for Flame Ward, we're going to cap out that Prismatic Buffer for less elemental damage taken, 3 points in Barrier for less hit damage, and then continue into the amount of ward that it'll give us with 3 more points into Star Ward Defense. For passives, we got 4 more points. We're going to go ahead and put all 4 of these into Arcane Obliteration for that spell critical strike multiplier, so our crits will hit a little bit harder, and we are working towards having a 100% crit, so that's going to affect all of the hits we do down the road. We're going to put 1 more point in there, and then we're going to build into both the adaptive spell damage and Archmage, and we're going to go into Recollection for that increased cooldown recovery so we can teleport more often, as that is how we kind of speed run through the echoes. And then for gear, again, we have the Prison Wraps, we have the Ashen Crown. Those are 2 spots we won't be able to put increased and flat health, which is going to kind of be a huge loss. Next patch, hopefully we can find some of these with some legendary potential, and that'll change things up. But right now we're going to have to find some hybrid health for our belt, and we're going to be stacking it basically everywhere else we can. As soon as we find a ring with maybe some tier 6 or tier 7 health, we'll switch away from the Arbor Circuit, but having that tree right now really helps us, and the move speed is really helpful as well. So we're definitely waiting until at least we get tier 5 movement speed on a pair of boots. But that will be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 65 for the next one. Alright, Travelers, we are now level 65. Time to put in some more points, but first we have our Elemental Resist almost all capped. Still working on getting some more physical. We're working on our Critical Strike Avoidance right now. We almost have that capped as well. For damage, it's the same as it has been. We do need to go look for a new two-handed staff. We should be able to get a little more adaptive spell damage at this point. but we still have that 150% lightning and almost 100% spell damage, and almost 1,000 life. Again, we're still aiming to get to about 1,200 plus right now. For skills, we got 2 more points for Elemental Nova. Gonna go ahead and throw both of them into Overcharge. For Lightning Blast, 2 more points. We're gonna go ahead and put 1 more in the Lightning Attunement, and then 1 point into Front Loaded. And we want to work into getting some spark charges possibly on hit with each one of those chains that we do, and if we get some plus points later, we can get some extra effect for that as well, which will do more damage. You can build into base critical strike chance if you want. You can build into the quad cast chance if you want, but for us, we're just going to stick with that. If you want to go straight just damage with lightning, definitely build over to the left side and get Shatter Shock for all that extra more damage multiplier that you can get against shock and chilled enemies. For Teleport, we got 2 more points. We're going to go ahead and put 1 more in Crystalline Passage and 1 more in Plasma Resonant for all those extra buffs. For Focus, we got 3 more points. We're going to cap out to that Prismatic Stance and then put 2 points in Iron Stance for the extra armor. And for Flame Ward, 3 points. We're going to cap out the Star Ward Defense. And then we're going to give ourselves some extra flat damage when we use it. Right now it's going to be fire damage, but we can convert that to lightning. Once we get a couple more points, we will make it to where we get added lightning while it's active with our skills. And for passives, we got 10 more passive points. We're going to put 1 more in Arcane Obliteration. Then we're going to put 5 points in Archmage. And then 4 points in Recollection. And then in our inventory, it's all the same as it was. Right now, we're just building up Critical Strike Avoidance and all of our Resist. And that'll be it for this update. I'll see you guys at level 75 for the next one. We are now level 75. We've got just over 1100 HP. We have our cap down elemental, our physical, and we were working on our poison, necrotic, and void. For defense, we are almost at 100% critical strike avoidance. We are farming through the Reign of Dragons right now, hoping that we can get the critical strike avoidance from the dragon as a blessing within a couple of tries. For damage, we do have about 300% lightning damage. That goes up when we have our Lightning Aegis active. That will give us a bunch more, and then we have about 100% spell damage. For skills, we have 1 more point for Elemental Nova. We're going to go ahead and throw it into Overcharge. For Lightning Blast, 1 more point. We're going to go ahead and throw it again into front loaded. And then for Teleport, we've got 1 more point, which we're going to throw into the buff duration so we can keep them for a little bit longer than that 4 seconds. For Focus, 1 more point into Iron Stance for additional armor while channeling. And for Flame Ward, we're going to go ahead and start working towards getting the lightning so that we get this 4 added spell damage that we have. That's going to be, instead of fire, it will be lightning added, but we got to get 1 point in that lightning ward for that. For passives, we have 10 more points. We're going to go ahead and put 8 of them in Mana Shell. We want to get over that 300 mana, so we're going to go ahead and put 8 there, and then 2 of them into Wisdom for that intelligence and mana. And if you look at our mana, you'll see that we now have over 300. So if you have any idols like this that give you increased lightning damage, doubled if you have over 300 max mana, we will now benefit from those. We do want 4 of these right here. We did find 1 really good idol, the hybrid idol that we want right here. This is best in the slot. We do want 4 of them, but currently we only have 1. And then for the rest of the stuff, we're still wearing the Ashen Crown. We still have the Prison Wraps. We're going to wear those all the way to the end game. Again, in the next patch, when you have the ability to turn those into legendaries, there will be a bunch of things that you'll be able to add to them. And then after that, we're just trying to get our critical strike avoidance. We're trying to get as much health as possible. And then we're also trying to get all of our resistances capped. But that is it for this update. That's it for this leveling guide. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'll see you next time.